Welcome back. So in this video, we're going to jump right into building a reimbursement form. Now, I have this PDF up. This is for requesting reimbursements. So the idea is that an employee is going to fill this out. They're going to select their school, pick a category. If they choose other, we're going to have them specify what they mean by other, throw in an expense date and an amount, but only if the category isn't travel. We'll put in a little reimbursement description there. And we'll have this whole section here about mileage show up if the category is travel. Of course, if they pick professional development for the category, we'll pop in a file upload field to attach a PD agenda. And then we'll have a handful of signatures before submitting. In this video, we're just going to lay out the form layout, and then we'll get into adding rules for some of the things that you see in purple here in the next video. So be sure to follow me at the end of this video to that one. Okay, so let's start. Over in Droplet, on the forms page, you can either create a new form by clicking this button here or by clicking plus form here. Both buttons do the same thing. We're going to start with just a blank form. And let's give our form a title. We'll call it Reimbursement Request Form. Great. So now I have a number of components that I can choose from in this left panel here. Let me swipe back and forth between the PDF I'm wanting to turn into a Droplet form and just make sure I'm staying aligned. I'm going to start with this employee name field. And I can adjust the width so that it matches 3 components with a width of 4. And I'll call this employee name and this employee email. Next, I'm going to drag on an options type component. So you got a couple options, pun not intended. For this, I'm going to use a drop-down menu. I'm just going to click and drag it, and then I can adjust the width so that it remains on this full line, and we'll call this school. Now here's where I'm going to list out Meadow Elementary, Fields Middle, and Marsh High. And then best practice is to give this field a more descriptive field ID. So instead of just the generic drop-down one, I'm going to call this school. Okay, let's keep going. So the next one is going to be category, supplies, travel, professional development, and other. I'm going to add this one as a single choice. And I'll add another option here for other. Great. Now that I want to be the same width as this, so we're kind of developing a little bit of a grid here. So I'm going to make this a width of 4 as well, and then I'll add my specify other. Now this is just going to be an input that I can bring right next to it, and I'll call this specify other. Ooh, I forgot to put in my ID here, category. And specify other will be specify other. Now, one important point about this is that we only want this field to show up if the submitter picks other. So in the next video, we'll talk about how we can get this to dynamically display. But for right now, we're just going to lay out the form components, and then we'll get into more advanced topics in the next video. Okay, the expense date is up next. I could put an input here, but actually we've got a date time picker that's going to be way better for this. This is going to require that the user enters a date. You also have time, date and time, and month options, but date is perfect for us. And I'll give this a expense date ID. Okay, next up is the amount. For this, I'm going to put in an input field. And I'm going to give this a mask dollars so that it displays as currency. It also will require that your users put in a dollar amount, which is handy. And then in this little piece is just going to be the description, and maybe we can drag in a text area for that. We can bring this down to maybe 3 lines, and let's make it a width of 8 to complete that row of 12 columns there. We'll call this description. And we'll give it an ID description. Okay, The next piece is going to be a whole section where if the category is travel, we want to collect a starting address, an ending address, and then calculate the number of miles. And then based on that, assuming that the mileage rate right now is 70 cents, let's come up with how much someone would be paid to travel that amount. So for this, we're going to drag on address components. Address components work with Google Maps. So as your users start to type an address or even just the name of a location, it's going to be searching through Google Maps, and we'll present them with some options based on what's a legitimate address. We can call this, actually address 1 seems fine for an ID. And what's nice about this is if you've got a component that's really similar, you can actually duplicate the component. And if you accidentally duplicate too many, or maybe you've just decided you want to get rid of a component, you can click this icon down here to delete it. Here we'll rename this ending address, and this should default to address 2, which is perfectly fine. Next, I just want to have a measure distance component that will be calculating the miles. And the way this works is you pick your starting and your ending address. And once there are values in these two inputs, Droplet will automatically calculate the shortest driving distance between those 2 points and display that number here. We can see it in action actually if you go to preview. I'm going to type in 123 Main Street. Let's do East Main Street in Columbus, Ohio. And let's go somewhere nearby Columbus, Ohio, maybe the Columbus Convention Center. Oh, not too far away, 1.6 miles. So now that we have this number, we can multiply it by the mileage rate to determine how much this employee should be reimbursed for the miles they traveled. For this, we're going to go and insert a computed component. Think of these like the formulas in a spreadsheet. So we can call this reimbursement amount. And what we'll do is we'll put in a formula. What I want to do is actually I want to rename this miles as the ID. This might be the reimbursement amount. And in the formula logic, I'm going to use Droplet AI to help me write a little code expression. Multiply miles by 0.70 is 1.6 miles times 70 cents gives you $1.12. Cool. So that's working. Okay, the last thing is going to be a file upload field for attaching a PD agenda. So that's going to be right here, this file upload field. And I tend to like to make these a width of 12. Just personal preference really is up to you. Attach PD agenda. PD agenda. And then the last thing is going to be just these 3 sets of signatures with timestamps. One is for a department head, one is for a principal, and one is for finance. So we'll drag these on. Now, when you drag on a signature component, right on board with it is a date signed timestamp component. And these are hooked up already to show the moment there's a signature in this field. So technically we have our first rule, which is going to be the next video. But this is one that Droplet will make for you. Let's keep dragging on our signature components here. Here we need the principal's signature. And then finally, one more signature component for finance. Okay, great. I think probably the last thing to do, and maybe this should have been the first thing that I did, is add a logo. So I can maybe make this a width of 4 here, and then a height of 100%. And then maybe I can put in a text box here. And that's it. We have our functioning reimbursement request layout. We've got the ability to pick from schools and categories. We can enter in dates and amounts that are going to be formatted as dollars. We've got some address components with some auto calculations for distance and for reimbursement amounts, the ability to upload files for a PD agenda, and we can even sign. And if you'll notice, oh, this component just showed up because of some rule or condition that was set on the form. So the next video is going to be all about how do we set up some of these rules within the form layout so that it's responsive to what the user is inputting. So follow me to this next video where we're going to dive into adding rules in our form layout.